Before we get started, I want to make an announcement here. A couple announcements. In continuing with past Chairman Stein's policy on certain bills that require, we feel like, some discussion and just public knowledge of more, an in-depth detail, what's transpiring. I'm going to abstain from certain bills. And today there are 3 bills: 2014-1215, 2014-1216, and 1217. I will be abstaining from those. So they'll be pulled off the consent agenda. If there's no objections, 2015 is the first bill. I would like to take Bill 2015 and 2017 together if we could. Council Lady Moore?
Oh, no, I'll wait till you finish. I'm sorry.
Okay. All right. 2014-1215 appropriates $2,573,300 in supplemental appropriations from the undesignated fund balance and other sources to various departments and programs. 2014-1217 approves an economic development incentive grant agreement in the amount of $1 million with Music City Productions Incorporated to incentivize the production of the television show Nashville. And also pertaining to this, we have with us tonight, we have Mr. Steve Buchanan and Sam Reed from the production company, and they will be happy to address any issues or any questions you might have pertaining to the incentive bill 1217 or 1215.
So ask for a motion.
I need a motion.
So moved.
Second? All right, discussion? Councilman Stein.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I got mine out first, Tim.
I went in order for the first time.
Mr. Chair, obviously part of this is a little sexier than others, but let me start with a couple of things in this that aren't. With either Mr. Riebling or Mr. Cooper, with 1215, my reading of this is that while we say it's $2,573,300, that in actuality, over $1 million of that is coming from funds that are just reimbursement, and this is just the way that we are funding that. Is that not correct?
Correct. It's about.
Excuse me.
It's about 1.3 million from the general fund.
Okay, and so then there are 3 elements to this that are indeed then new funding out of the reserve fund. The first is actually, well, not the first, but honoring our commitment to the Election Commission during our budget process to come forward with a supplemental once we got past the August election and they knew what the costs were for the November. That's $75,000 of it. And then there's $250,000 that would go towards our putting on the National League of Cities in 2015, and then $1 million of that, and then the last $1 million then goes to the Nashville TV show.
Correct.
Correct. We do have here the folks from the Election Commission, and Mr. Chair, they passed out their list, and I think they've increased from 9 sites in a few more days from August to 10 sites and 9 days, but since Mr. Wall is here, and this is so very important to this council and to voters, you might have him elaborate on that if we could.
Okay, Mr. Wall.
Election Commission met on the 22nd of August and approved the expanded schedule for the November early election. It's the same early voting sites that were in place for August with the addition of 1, which is Goodlettsville, but we've also increased the number of days to 9 days across the 10 sites and 1 site for 14 days. So we have geographic coverage. It seems to be adequate. We have the training schedule in place to implement this schedule, and early voting will start at the Sunny West Auditorium on the 15th of October. All early voting will end on the 30th of October.
think one additional question. You sent us information about the sort of remarkable work you all have done in recruiting poll workers based on the budget increase you got for last year. You might want to fill us in verbally about that.
I appreciate that, sir. Yes, we, in January, first part of January, it came to my attention that we were woefully short of poll workers who were actually available to work the elections in 2014. This was quite a surprise to me. We were in the order of 900 to 1,000 poll workers, and we needed considerably more than that to put on the election and to avoid the kind of problems that happened in 2012. So with Mr. Riebling's approval, we were able to move some funds around in the budget and to get some slots opened up and reallocated within our organization to be able to bring in some recruiting help. And through the efforts of the recruiting blitz that we put on, aided by a lot of local organizations with their own websites and their own willingness to get the word out, including council members who also got the word out, I'm pleased to say that the letters that were sent out just last week for the poll workers announcing to them what their training schedule was going to be was 1,549. That's 900 more new applications than we had last year. So I think the recruiting effort has certainly paid off. We got the response we were looking for, and now the task has been and will continue to be to make sure these folks are adequately trained when they go out to work on election day. But thanks to the help of Metro, we were able to really put out the effort that was required to get this done.
Thank you. Then I have two other questions, and they can wait to be answered till the rest of the council committee chimes in about the Nashville TV show. But I do hope that our guests will address two issues. One, sort of, obviously the $1 million is an increase from $500,000, but I do think it helps to have them articulate exactly the impact the show is having worldwide. Also, what I understand will be the impact now that we're going into a third season forever, as it goes, is it will go into reruns around the world after that. And then the last thing is, my understanding is that in the legislation, that indeed $500,000 of this is contingent upon them filming in town 80% of the time. And I would just be curious as whether or not they're on that schedule since they've already begun. And whatever point the chair wants them to speak to that, I would appreciate that.
Well, they're here now. We'll just allow them to answer those questions. Mr. Reed and Mr. Buchanan, please.
Great, thank you. Appreciate the opportunity to speak to you today. To answer your question in terms of 80+%, actually I would say that our track record in season 1 and season 2, and then thus far in season 3, is that we basically have shot almost 100% here in Nashville. We did shoot a scene in Central Park with Good Morning America, but it's really not that long. So we try to be realistic, and so we try to be realistic in our portrayal of Nashville. We shoot probably a little less than 50% on our stages in North Nashville off of Trinity Lane. But we shoot a lot around Nashville and on location, and I think that that's really important in terms of how we really capture the personality and really what makes the character of this city.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Councilman Garrett, I want to first apologize. Vice Chair Garrett, I should have called on you. Thank you.
All right, no problem. My main concern, I had two questions, is, and since we're on the Nashville show, with Mr. Chairman's permission, Matt, I'd like for you to at least go over a little bit about where the money's coming from and what's happened and what matching money is. And you and I, had talked about this. Just give, if that's all right with the chair and with the committee, to keep this here in Nashville. I think this falls into your preview, and just and I know that money has been matched in certain areas, and the state has decreased a little bit on what they've given, and the city has picked up and taken the ball.
Yes, sir. The funding is for $1 million, as was mentioned earlier. Half of that available up front, half of that after the airing of the 13th episode that is at least 80% shot in Nashville. That $1 million of funding is being matched by $1 million of funding from the CVC. The CVC matched our $500,000 commitment last year. And in addition, I believe a private entity, Ryman Hospitality, is providing approximately $500,000 in incentives. The state amount I don't think is finalized yet, and so I want to be hesitant to comment on that specifically, but I think it has been reported to be generally in a $5.5 million range, and so all told, the incentive would be approximately $7 million. That is a significant reduction from prior amounts, and that's part of the reason that the city has stepped up in this way. Over the life of the show, the metro amounts that our incentives would be are a fraction of the significant commitment that the state has made in initial seasons 1 and seasons 2 to this show. And so I think that it's important to keep in mind that a significant portion of the state's film and entertainment reserves for incentives have been dedicated to this show. And while we're focused on Nashville and Davidson County, the state's having to balance interests across the state, and this show has certainly been a tremendous boost for sales tax dollar collections by the state and by the city. So I don't know if that directly addressed your question, but that's some context on this.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I really wanted just to say all that because there are a few people that watch this program. And Mr. Chairman, I think we talked about this. I think you're going to abstain so that this gets at least a little conversation tomorrow night.
Yes,
and it's not on the consent calendar, and I hope you'll be allowed to, say that tomorrow night, because there are some people that watch and would like to hear where the funds come from. And Mr. Chairman, I have a question for our election commission. Is this appropriate time?
Yes, sir. Mr. Wall. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you. One other question. I know when you mentioned about Goodlettsville has their city election.
That's
and
right.
It's my understanding, as always, they reimburse the city of Nashville for the cost of this.
That's correct.
But we are going to use the city of Goodlettsville site as also a site for the normal election. Is that
That's
correct?
Yes, sir.
Belle Meade, does Belle Meade reimburse you as well?
No, they don't. That's a regular.
That might be a request, because, they're going to have their commissioners?
Yes, it is.
There's really not a lot of difference in what they're doing and the city of Goodlettsville is doing. Is that correct?
The only difference is that Goodlettsville actually requested this in Belle Meade and Forest Hills. Forest Hills didn't have one, but Belle Meade did not. That's just a part of the early voting agenda.
Right, I know they've always been an early voting site, but it might be a nice suggestion that since other satellite cities pay for it, you might want to suggest to them that they might want to pay for it as well.
I will do that, sir.
What about Forest Hills? Where is the Forest Hills people vote for their election?
It is going to be the
I just didn't see anything in the Forest Hills city limits.
Actually, Forest Hills is having their city election.
Right.
It's not a part of the early voting.
Okay. Well, that's the city of Goodlettsville is having their city elections as well.
That's right.
Okay. So then they do it on that same date too, and so does Belle Meade. I just thought that if their city election at the same time, it might be a way to save a little money. But if one city is going to pay for it, I'm certainly sure that Belle Meade they might not like me suggesting it, but it might be a way to at least save a little money.
All right, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Wall. Oh, Councilman Glover.
They ought to pay for it.
I'm going to sound like a pessimist, and I'm not planning on voting against the show Nashville. Planning on voting for it, but here's an area I've got heartburn on. We haven't been able to give our employees a real raise in several years now, We've done, what, a half a point? I think this year was a half a point raise. If we're going to do this, I just think that if we're going to keep our priorities in line, Mr. Chair, then I would ask that we seriously look at being able to fund our employees and at least allow them to do a COLA, cost of living adjustment, over, this next year. So I'm going to ask that we keep our eye on this ball. And I realize money's tight, I get that, but I mean, $1 million would go a pretty good little distance on helping to fund giving a proper raise. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, and I assure you that will be investigated at a later time. Councilman Stein?
I'm sorry, I just want to make sure that we're accurate, and someone here's going to have to help remind me of the numbers of our employees that got at least 3%. How many thousand?
Probably half got increments this year in addition to the 3% increments in addition to the COLA.
And then another group got almost 4%. Did they not, based on the money that went to the departments for their discretionary?
Open range received 2% in addition to the cost of living raise.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Council Lady Moore.
One question, to the Election Commission and then to the Nashville folks. I noticed that you have on here Casa Asafran Community Center as a satellite location. Now, with that, once that the early voting schedule is commenced, will that become a regular voting site, Casa Asafran?
Yes, it is.
Okay. So did you take any away? Because I knew I had several in my district, so was
No.
any? Okay. All right.
Same number.
Okay, thank you. A question for the Nashville folks.
Okay.
I was going to ask a question. We were talking about street closures. Is there any way that you all could just notify, there has been, I guess, some, in the District 18 area, some street closures, and the people weren't just notified of those closures somehow. If you all could let them know of those street closures in that area, in the Belmont Hillsborough area, and would be, if you could just put that on your radar.
Sure. Yeah, I will make
Okay.
sure production knows that.
And looking for season 3 to be successful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Council Lady Dowell?
Thank you. I just had a quick question. Well, one, I just want to tell Mr. Wall, thank you for keeping our voting location open over in the Crossings Event Center, so we definitely appreciate that. But the other question I had is for the Nashville TV show, and I'm sorry, I'm just kind of going through. No, I just want to say thank you. I really appreciate that. We didn't have an early voting location at one point, and it created a lot of problems. So I'm very excited to have the crossings open. I promised to get my neighbors out to vote. But I did have a question about the Nashville TV show, and I'm just trying to understand this, and I'm sorry I didn't print out my full analysis, but the $1 million we're appropriating now that's proposed, that's in addition to the $500,000 that we gave. I'm just trying to understand the total amount.
The $500,000 was last
for the last
budget.
Okay, and so now we're doing we're increasing it by an extra $500,000 plus another $500,000.
Well, the other $500,000, if they abide by the 80% filming within the Nashville city limit or Davis County.
Okay, who's measuring that to make sure they film in the city?
They will submit documentation. As it's written in the ordinance, they have to submit proper documentation to me of filming. So I will be reviewing that. I will not, in fact, be on location, but we'll be reviewing documentation of where they do the filming.
Okay. The other observation I just want to make, I support the show. I watched the show. I would like to see them expand and show more than just downtown Nashville and Centennial Park. The Antioch area is open. We have a lot of box space. You can come out and film beautiful parks, agriculture, and everything. So we would, the name Nashville in itself is giving us publicity without paying for any production here. The production here provides additional jobs and so forth for the city. But the other observation I want to make is that I would like to see more of the city on the show besides downtown. And then the second thing is that I noticed that the state reduced the amount of funding they provided for the show this year, and it looks like we're kind of picking up the difference because it was about $1 million if I recollect. And I know with film it's very competitive, providing incentives to get different shows to film in the city. So this year we're adding another $500,000 to the pot. So next season, if it's picked up again, are we going to continue getting into sweeten the pot to keep them here in the city, or is there some type of allegiance to the city for just having them there? So I'm just hoping. I know we use as a measurement criteria a number of people employed by the show and all of that. I know that it's difficult to measure the goodwill to determine what type of economic benefit we get from the other ancillary things. But I would just hope that next year we don't come back and we need $1 million to stay or $2 million to stay. I hope that we can find a happy medium between the production cost and keep them in the city without continuing adding, money. That's it.
Thank you, Councilor. Any other, I see none in the queue. Is there any other discussion? Thank you, gentlemen. We'll take a vote on 2015 and 2017. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? I am abstaining. All opposed? Motion passes. Judge Bell's with us, so we will take out of order 2014-1218. Approves a contract between the State Department of Mental Health and Substance Abuse Services to the General Sessions Court for mental health evaluations and treatment for defendants charged with misdemeanor crimes. Motion? Move approval. Second. Discussion? Councilor Dowell?
Why is my thing on?
Okay. Councilor Moore?
I just wanted to know, I know that sometimes we get invited to come to hear those court cases, but how are they tried? So far as when they come for funding, do they have are those individuals have lawyers, or all this is a part of that, or how is that done? I was just curious.
I think Judge Bell could answer that question.
Good afternoon. To answer that question, Councilmember Moore, sometimes the individuals have lawyers, sometimes they're the public defender, and sometimes we have the court-appointed individual. We're just asking for a continuation of the existing contract that we've been operating under to make sure the individuals are competent to stand trial.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Councilman Garrett?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Judge Bell, as the new presiding judge, I noticed on here, as always, it talks about trying to get the patient to pay for these services. Generally speaking, you don't get blood out of a turnip. The bottom line is, and I will just, through the years of being here, as the judges have different programs.
Sorry.
Judges have different programs that come before us, that a lot of times they're funded by either fees or on the individuals who are being tried, or that's how the funding. Well, what happens is they don't have the funds to do it, and that's really what there's an estimate on here. And John, I guess I have to ask you on here on your analysis. It talks about no funds have been budgeted for treatment. What happens, or is that something that I should ask Judge Bell about, or are there no funds for the treatment?
Mr. Hassel could probably answer that.
He's been around a while, and he knows what I'm talking about.
Right. If there is a dire need for someone that does need inpatient, usually the mental health court will kick in and try to find some resources, maybe through the mental health co-op or some other areas.
Other than that, you have to have a supplemental appropriation from this council?
Possibly.
I want the council members to know that on the front end, where you know, it's a good program, it sounds great, and it sounds like, you know, you're going to get paid for by the patients, but that just generally doesn't happen. Even if it just doesn't happen half the time, it runs y'all in the red.
But they've been trying to, for the last several years, the mental health court has been trying to handle those folks that do need treatment, and they have means of finding the resources.
Fine. I have no problems with it. I hope you'll keep this council, the chairman, and I'm sure the finance director will be, I've let them know 6 months from now, at least just let them know where you are.
Right.
Thank you.
Councilor Weiner?
Thank you, Chair. Judge Bell. Yes. It is my understanding, and Warner, you may be able to answer this as well, that there is a $100 fee that is tacked on to some of the DUI charge fees that are levied, and that goes into a separate fund. Can you share with us what that fund is used for?
It is used in the mental health court. It's also used in the drug court that Judge Moreland runs at our level of court. So those two specialty courts share that fund to provide services to the people that are needing services in their respective courts.
Is that the only place that those funds go? They're specifically allocated to that?
They can go to, the statute spells out other areas, licensed substance abuse facilities that are licensed by the state of Tennessee, but the specialty courts use a good lion's share of that fund.
Do you know how much is in that fund typically annually? Or can we get that information?
Usually annually it's a little over $100,000 that goes into that fund annually.
Chair, I think it might be something that we want to take a look at in terms of how the funds are being used, and if we might be able to see a way that we could derive some more revenue for them for this program as well.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no other in the queue, no other discussion, all in favor of 1218? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
2014-12-16 appropriates $3,959,500 from the General Fund Reserve Fund to 11 departments for the purchase of equipment and building repairs. Do I have a motion? Second. Before we go into discussion, I just want to make sure there's someone a representative from each department here, so I'm going to read them right down the list here. The Sheriff's Department, Law, yes, naturally. Let's see. Historical Commission, Information Technology, Parks and Recreation, General Hospital, Municipal Auditorium, Health, Public Library, Emergency Management, and State Trial Courts. Okay. We're open for discussion. Councilman Maynard.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to say that in the past, when we've had the 4% money, there have been some challenges at General Hospital, and I want to commend the administration and this council for the investment that it's been making in General Hospital for both necessary equipment and necessary repairs. General Hospital's had tremendous increase in the numbers of patients regarding their census. They've been able to stabilize given some policy decisions that were introduced by the administration, passed by this Metro Council. And so I just want to commend both the administration and the council, because many times I always hear the complaints, but we never hear the accommodations, if you will, for a job well done. And so this $500,000 for repairs is going to go towards the renovation and equipment of General Hospital on top of the $3.1 million that was done by this council. And that is very, very important that they've got new equipment. I also, as Council Lady Dowell stated, you know, the Nashville show has hospital scenes from time to time. And now that we have these new repairs, it would be great if Nashville filmed any hospital scenes at General Hospital. My last point, if they're still here, the last point I want to state is I want to piggyback off of what Councilman Garrett stated during our committee meeting, and that is that with General Hospital and with its stability financially, with the renovations, the new equipment that they're receiving and going to receive, I think it's important that not only the mental health court, but other departments within Metro government begin to work with General Hospital and its partner, Meharry Medical College, regarding the health care needs of our prisoners, because our prison health care costs are expensive, and it is 1/3 the cost. And I'm not going to put Mr. Riebling on the spot, and I'm not going to ask him to say amen to it, but we've talked about prison health care costs, and they could be dramatically reduced if those prisoners were being seen at General Hospital, and our mental health court costs, or the cost of the patient, or whether it's the cost of the city, will be reduced, and our costs in prison care will be reduced if we do not have individuals going back into the system. For most mental health prisoners and or patients, it is because they got off their meds. So it's a compliance issue. And so we work with General Hospital and we work with Elam Center from Meharry Medical College. We could reduce the cost to our taxpayers and regarding to the prison health care costs of those who are visitors, if you will, of our prison system. Thank you.
Thank you, Council Maynard. Council A. Moore.
I have a question for the law department. I guess, what is a new case management system? What is that? I'm curious. You can tell me that.
The case management system is how we keep up with everything we do. Anytime a lawsuit comes in, a new matter is opened. Anytime a question is asked, a new matter is opened. Then throughout the time that matter is being worked on or the case is being tried, any documents that we produce are attached to it. It's our whole function of everything we do is contained within this case management system. It's how we operate from day to day.
So it's like it's a tracking system. Is that basically what it is, or just?
It's a computer program and software of which, yes, ma'am, we track everything we do.
Okay, thank you. And another question for the Information Technology Services.
He's en route.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Durbin. The $908,000, is that one computer, replacement computer and hardware, or is just, could you explain that, please, sir?
Sure. Actually, this is a lot of different equipment. There are actually 3 types of equipment here. A lot of telephones have reached the end of their useful life. A lot of desktops and laptops, we're talking hundreds, and a lot of internet firewalls that protect us. So this isn't one type of device or single devices. It's lots of different types that we track. And when they run out of their useful life, we replace them.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Durbin.
You're welcome.
I have 2 more questions and I'm going to be done. I have one for the emergency management. I was just wondering about what is a new time tracking system?
The new time tracking system is a system we will use in order for us to keep track of all of our hours worked out in the field. And it allows us to track both employees and volunteer hours. Right now, we do not have a way to track all of those in detail, and that'll give us that opportunity.
Okay, thank you. All right, thank you so much. One more question on municipal auditorium. I was just looking at, it said $379,000 for phase 3 of the seat refurbishing. Does that mean that you all have better seating for the handicap area or just all over?
It's just basically replacing the seats that are already there. They are from Bob Sconey. He's told me they're the original seats 52 years ago. So we've already got almost 2,000 renovated, and he is trying to be green with this. They are taking the backs, which are wood, and sanding them and refinishing them and putting them back in. The metal that is attached to the floor is being repainted the original colors, and the seats are being repadded, and instead of a fabric cover, they're putting a vinyl on it so that the life will be longer on those.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councilman Stein?
Municipal auditorium folks, don't go away. Just a quick question. Obviously, we've been working on this now, I think, for 2 years, or at least two budgets. How many more phases are there till we will have fixed all the chairs?
We've got almost 2,000 done. There are a total of 7,000 seats. Right now, we're hitting the problem of we're getting into municipal's busy time, so it's going to be, the winter time is a little bit slower at getting the seats done. So we're hoping to get this next 1,000 started and continue to work on it when it's down time between events. And then probably in the spring, we will probably back to ask for some more money for the next 1,000.
So we've still got some more work to do before we get them all done. Thank you. A couple of others, and I'm surprised, and I will call her out. I'm surprised Council Lady Moore didn't want to talk about the cemetery, since Lady Moore and Councilman Harrison were so articulate on this subject during our budget process. But Tim, this is doing some needed repair work at the cemetery, is it not? It's a pass-through, you all to them.
That's correct. It's to repair gravestones, repair some road work, stone walls, to repair a telecommunications line, repair a roof of a building. Goes for those types of repairs.
Thank you. This is the second, just so the council knows, this is the second of two issues of promises we made during our budget process that with the help of the administration that we are honoring. My last question is, passing through Parks and Recreation is money to the Adventure Science Center. Mr. Lynch, I know Ms. Duvenhagen is also here from the center. Come up if you will. The people, I think, forget that indeed Adventure Science Center is closely related to the park system, is it not?
It actually is located on park property.
And so this work is, the work that we're doing on the building is actually keeping up our own facility in a way. Obviously, it's also helping make it safe for all the kids that come. Is that not correct?
I couldn't put it any better. Yes, sir. No, that's exactly accurate.
And Susan, you might tell us a little bit. This is doing roof and some other things, roof working?
It is. It's some water mitigation issues that we have, both with about 26-year-old windows to some arch capping to some coating. Also looks at upgrading some audio system. That public room that we have just as you enter into Adventure Science Center to the left is woefully inadequate and actually quite embarrassing when we have some significant groups in there, everything from the mayor to the Metro Nashville Public School report card. So it's a number of items, and going down as small as a public drinking fountain that needs to be replaced.
Thank you very much. And I, like everyone else, look forward to the new improved legal department. We look forward to sharing your efficiencies with you.
Councilman Garrett.
Well, Mayor Conrad over here asked most of my questions over here. But I did have one other one. John, emergency management, can those funds not come out of 911? What we've got here? Is that not part of what 911 might be doing?
No, I think this is more of the Homeland Security type function, tracking hours, they can specify.
Emergency management is not part of 911. We fall under fire department right now, but we're a separate office from 911. We don't operate under there. We do operate under Homeland Security.
Would you like to be? They've got a lot of money that could help you out, and that'd be a good partnership to think about sometime.
Well, Homeland Security grants require that we're an independent office.
Oh, I was going to say that might take state legislation, but that would be a good partnership. Thank you.
Council Lady Bennett.
Thank you, Chairman Pridemore. My question is to the Health Department. Mr. Sharp, would you come up? And while Mr. Sharp is walking up, Nashville folks, we would just love for a cast member to adopt a hound dog out of the MAC facility and give us a little PR there. We wouldn't mind that at all. So Mr. Sharp,
And shoot a show around, yes, ma'am.
what'd you say, Tom?
I'd send them, take it to the hospital and shoot a show around it.
Oh, yeah, that'd be great. Resuscitation and everything, right? The health department is getting $50,000 with this. It says miscellaneous equipment and repairs. Is this going to include the problematic phone system that we have at MAC? No. What does this include?
It's an incinerator.
Oh, one of those things we don't like to talk about, isn't it? I'm so sorry. Okay. Well, can we hopefully add the phone system to some of our future things? Because I know the phone lines over there are just horrendous. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
I appreciate the whisper, Mr. Sharp. Councilor Langster.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Budget and Finance. Is ITTS still in the house, Derwin?
He is.
Thank you for staying. You mentioned that you're going to get some new computer equipment and, and other things.
Yes,
Is
ma'am.
it well enough? Is it in best shape to send to our public schools here in Nashville, or maybe the Oasis Center on Charlotte? Is it any life left in it?
There may be some life left in it. However, I know MNPS, we've had that discussion with them in the past, and they have policies around using equipment, and I think part of it relates to them being able to maintain the equipment, which is the same reason we replace the equipment, because it becomes harder to repair and maintain and use modern programs. I'm happy to reach out to John Williams over there and ask him if they would consider that. As far as the Oasis Center or others, we don't have any programs that do that, but if people approached us around that type of a request, we would certainly consider it.
Okay. When should you be approached?
Bring it on.
Okay. All right, because you haven't gotten the new equipment yet, have you?
We have not. This is to, we'd like to have the money before we order them.
Okay, that makes sense, but I'll get the Oasis Center to contact you.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no other in the queue for discussion, all in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion passes. RS 2014-1219 approves a state grant of $75,100 to the Nashville Career Advancement Center to prepare eligible participants for re-entry in the labor force. Second. All in favor? Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Motion passes. 2014-1220 approves a grant of $300,000 from the Conservancy for the Parthenon and Centennial Park to the Metro Parks Department to support the implementation of the Centennial Master Plan.
So moved.
Second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. 2014-1221 Parks and approves an annual state grant of $7,000 to the Metro Board of Parks and Recreation to supplement the Big Band Dance Program in Centennial Park. Motion? Second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. 2014-1222 approves an amendment to a grant of $100,000 from the Greater Nashville Regional Council to the Metro Social Services Commission for personal care, homemaker, and nutrition services by modifying the rate per meal social services will be paid. Have a motion?
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Motion passes. 2014-1228 authorizes the Department of Law to settle the personal injury claim of Robert Crocker against the Metropolitan Government for $49,010. I have a motion? Second? Councilman Pardue.
I'd just like to know what it's for.
I believe John?
This was an incident where there was a rear-end collision, and I believe it involved a police officer who was later reprimanded, and the plaintiff had severe neck injuries and about about $30,000 in medicals, I believe. So that's what happened here.
Thank you.
Council? I guess you turned it off. Any other discussion? Seeing none? All in favor? Opposed? Motion passes. Going to bills on second reading, 2014-872, authorizes Metropolitan Government to enter into a participation agreement with LPC Contractors of Southeast Incorporated regarding the construction of 400 feet of 8-inch water main in 23rd Avenue North from Charlotte Avenue to Felicia Court at a cost of $60,000. Do I have a motion? Second? Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Motion passes. 2014-873, authorizes the Metro Government to enter into a participation agreement with Laurel Properties, LLC, regarding the construction of 312 feet of 8-inch water main in Laurel Street from 12th Avenue South to the end of Laurel Street for benefit of the Laurel Apartments and other existing properties in the area at a cost of $30,000. Have a motion? Second? Seeing no discussion, any discussion, all in favor? Opposed? Motion passes. Bill on third reading authorizes the 2014-861, authorizes the acquisition of various easements and other property interest for 70 properties on a Metro Water Service gravity pipe upgrade project with an estimated acquisition cost of $175,000. Motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Motion passes. Gentlemen, that is the end of the consent agenda, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you.